Hi everyone, I am Alfredo T. Bergonio. You can call me Fred, your reporter for today. I will discuss in today's lesson one of the topic in forensic ballistic, which is under chapter 3, entitled Residue from Discharge of Firearms, which is also known as Gunshot Residue Analysis or Gunshot Residue Examination. To proceed, we have here the following objectives. At the end of the lesson, the learners are expected to first discover the types of residue from the discharge firearms, and also to discuss the nitrates and nitrites examination and detection, which is also known as gunshot residue examination. Lastly, to identify and establish the role of gunshot residue in criminal investigation. The scope of this topic will revolve to the following. First, the definition of a gunshot residue. Second, the nitrates and nitrites examination and detection. Third, the pioneer contributors and their milestone. Fourth, the method of examination and detection of discharge firearms, which is also known as gunshot residue examination or analysis. And also the reliability of the phenylamine test, which is also known as the packing test. And lastly, under the scope of our topic is to discuss the detection of priming mixture residue. Without further ado, let's start the discussion proper. So I have here a picture. Can you tell me more what you can see in this picture? Okay, thank you so much for that one. So yung makikita natin sa larawang ito ay a person holding a gun ay pinaputok yung baril. So basically what we can see are the primary object in this picture are as follows. First, a gun. Second, a projectile, which is a bullet that goes outside a gun. And the topic that we are focusing on is the gunshot residue. So yung usok na makita natin mismo sa baril na pumutok has something to do with our lesson. Ano nga ba ang tinatawag na gunshot residue o ang bakas mula sa baril na pinaputok o pumutok? A gunshot residue is also known as cartridge discharge residue with the abbreviation of CDR, and also gunfire residue, and also firearm discharge residue. So it consists of all of the particles that are expelled from the muzzle of a gun following discharge of the bullet. Okay, so when a firearm is shot, in addition to the projectile's motion, it is the process by which a debris comes out from the muzzle. So those gunshot residue, or the GSR in abbreviation, can include the various primers residue and also the residue from the projectile itself. So the process of firing a gun, we can observe there that there is a gunshot residue. Yung usok na nagmula mismo sa pagputok ng baril ay composed of the following. First, partially burned and unburned gunpowder, and also some of the particles. So in this process, it involves one of the branch in ballistic study, which is external ballistic, na kung saan ay nakatuon sa pag-aaral ng behavior of projectile or yung bullet na pinaputok from the muzzle to the target. So it is the study of the behavior of the projectile outside the muzzle the moment it comes out from the muzzle to the target itself, because the moment it hits the target, then it is a different branch of the study, which is terminal ballistics. Gunshot residue plays a major role to the next topic that I will discuss. So moving forward, we will focus on this topic, which is entitled Nitrates and Nitrites Examination and Detection, which is commonly known as gunshot residue analysis or gunshot residue examination. So as per book definition, nitrates and nitrites are also known as gunshot residue, cartridge case residue, or a firearm discharge residue, So it refers to any unburnt, burnt, non-volatile, organic or inorganic particle which is released from a discharge firearm. So these nitrates, in short, came from a root word which is potassium nitrate. It is also composed of sulfur and other organic and inorganic compound. So this is in reference to the previous history. It was discovered by a Chinese monk. Is in reference sa kanyang pagiging creative. Siguro bored lang siya that time at saka curious. Kaya naisipan niyang mag-invento at magsaliksik tungkol sa tinatawag na elixir of life o elixir of youth. So this is a kind of potion that extends your life. As a result of that, this Chinese monk, instead of discovering the target elixir potion, discovered gunpowder. So this is in relation to the nitrates. So when we say nitrates, it is a gunpowder. Meanwhile, when we say nitrites naman, it is a gunshot residue. So it is unburnt or burnt gunpowder from a discharge firearm. So it is composed of lead and other inorganic compound or inorganic particle. So when we say nitrates and nitrites as a whole, it will give us a simple definition, which is gunshot residue. Nitrates and nitrites examination and detection, or also known as gunshot residue analysis, the GSR, is a process of detecting the presence of distinctive chemicals that are deposited in a person's hand. So it is also can be detected in the person's clothing and other nearby surfaces where the gun is fired. So if you may want to ask, what is the purpose of gunshot residue analysis? Well, it is very important. It is very crucial in order for forensic investigator and also the PNP crime lab to figure out and evaluate where this gunpowder came from. If a person is a suspect or if a person is only a witness or not part of the crime scene at all. Kagaya ng halimbawa na kapag ikaw ay naghalo ng semento, well, kapag naghalo ka ng semento, magkakaroon ka ng lamat o semento sa iyong kamay. At saka yung sementong iyon ay hindi basta-basta nahuhugasan ng tubig. So, if you already experienced this kind of scenario, which I experienced before, well, hindi siya basta-basta mahuhugasan ng tubig. Kahit nga sabunan mo, ay kailangan mo pang kuskusan ng brush para matanggal yung semento sa iyong kamay. Same way as well, kapag nagpaputok ka ng baril, magkakaroon ka ng pulbura sa iyong kamay at saka sa mga nearby objects na malapit sa baril o sa gunshot residue. So it will be absorbed by your skin because yung balat natin ay may mga pores composed of dermis and epidermis, same as well sa clothing, it will be absorbed. So later on, as it dry, magsusolidify siya, at saka hindi siya basta-basta mawawala o mahugasan ng ordinaryong substance, kung tubig man yan. So this will be factors that are need to be preserved in order for forensic investigator to investigate where this gunpowder came from. Kaya, mapapaisip ka na, ganun pala yun? Yes, ganun yun. Hindi basta-basta nakukuha yung residue sa parte na kung saan ito ay exposed. Sa kamay man yan o sa damit. So, it will be serve as a trace evidence. It will give life to the principle of Edmund Locard, which is, for every contact, remains a trace. Kung mayroong pumutok na baril, siguradong may nagpaputok. In connection to this, we will also know who are the pioneers or the initiator of this gunpowder analysis or the nitrates and nitrites examination and detection. We have here two individuals which are regarded as the pioneer in the study of nitrates and nitrites examination and detection. So in the year 1914, in a person named Dr. Ito Ruiz, the person who introduced paraffin wax as a means to collect propellant residue. So Dr. Ito Ruiz proposes a theory and only introduces the idea that paraffin wax can be used as a means to collect propellant residue or gunpowder residue. Not later than after 1931, which is 17 years later, when a person named Teodoro Gonzalez, a person who applied this theory into practical application. So, yung inintroduce ni Dr. Ito Ruiz ay nilapat o ginamit sa practical na aplikasyon ni Teodoro Gonzalez. So, si Teodoro Gonzalez is a person who applied a version of Dr. Ito Ruiz. So here, it is a modified version of what Dr. Ito Ruiz introduces. So after 2 years, Teodoro Gonzalez teach and also demonstrate this process of paraffin casting or the paraffin test using paraffin wax to the states within the United States. So Dr. Ito Ruiz, as much as I wanted to provide specific details about him, his picture, and also short biography, sad to say, wala akong mahanap na article and also some information sa internet. Same as well kay Teodoro Gonzalez, nahihirapan din ako maghanap ng biography niya at saka ng picture niya. Maybe these two person are not boastful, hindi ganun ka-publicize yung kanilang mga gawa, or they are not exposed in publicity. So that is might be one of the factors why there is no specific data about them. So this person, Teodoro Gonzalez, is a forensic specialist working in the Criminal Investigation Laboratory of Mexico. Next in line will be the method of examination and detection of discharge firearm. So it is the GSR method of examination or the gunshot residue examination. So we have here the first method, the paraffin test. So as per book definition, paraffin test is the first method in determining whether or not someone had fired a gun in which a person's hand is coated in a hot paraffin wax. So which, if eventually cools, then it sets the figure and it will be peeled off and then tested for the presence of the residue from the gun. Paraffin test as a method of gun residue analysis or examination is the most common among all the methods that forensic investigator applies and use in the forensic ballistic examination. So sa video na ito, medyo may kahabaan. You may visit it on YouTube. You can copy the link and paste it. And also you can watch relevant videos that is connected to this topic. So based on what I watched, what I saw to the paraffin test and the casting process, so kailangan mo ng mga sumusunod. Una ay yung paraffin wax. Kalawa ay yung casserole o yung container na kung saan tutunawin mo yung paraffin wax. Third is yung burner o yung stove. Then other instrument that will be needed in this process are tongs or forceps, and also paraffin cotton or ordinary cotton, and cardboard. If you want to try this experiment of paraffin test or casting process, you may try this one by yourself. You just only need to buy those material at the local hardware, drugstore, or you can order it online. And some of the manufacturers also sell this product. Manufacturers basic kit, just like forensic kits and other medical supplies. So some of those are not accessible in the local drugstore. So you need to purchase some of those materials in specific forensic manufacturer or laboratory. So in this process, you just only need the materials that I already mentioned earlier and perform the procedure. So first, if you already melt or the paraffin wax is already melted using the solution which is acetone or alcohol, it is because hindi siya matutunaw gamit lamang ang tubig. So we need the soluble compound that can dissolve the paraffin wax. So katulad ng kandila, kapag tinunaw mo sa tubig, hindi talaga siya matutunaw. So you just only need to apply specific compound that can dissolve the paraffin wax. So for that, it will melt between 47 to 68 degrees using a burner. So that is the melting point of the paraffin wax. Then you need to use the paraffin cotton or ordinary cotton to cast the hand of the person or your hand if you're trying to experiment. And before you cast it, make sure that you wash your hand using water. Don't use soap because it will complicate or it will complicate the substance which is present on the suspected person's hand who fired the gun. So for that, you need to use forceps or tongs and hold this cotton and apply the paraffin wax gradually in your hand or in the suspect's hand to cast the paraffin casting that will eventually form later on. Titigas siya, tsaka magiging wax. At yung kamay ng suspect o yung kamay mo ay magiging basihan ng paraffin test. Kasi later on, if it already cools, kung malamig na siya, then you will slowly pull out your hand sa cast. Tsaka kailangan siyang isprihan ng acidic agent which is diphenylamine. It is a reagent that turns the primary compound or metallic elements such as barium, lead, kag ammonium into blue flickers color. So it will be then included as a positive result of the gunpowder residue sa kamay mo o sa person's hand. Meanwhile, in some videos in YouTube, it is not being shown the process. So sa field naman ng forensic science, specifically ng PNP Crime Lab, hindi natin alam kung ano yung exact process niya kasi hindi available yung ganong procedure sa internet. So, most of the video that you can watch in YouTube only teach you how to do the process, but how to identify and examine the paraffin test will not provide you the specific details, only the process itself. So you need a reagent for that one, which is the phenylamine, in order for you to examine if the gunpowder residue is present and indeed positive to the person's hand, and also to your hand if you expose to gunpowder. Under the method of paraffin test, we have two types of procedure that the forensic investigator commonly apply. So the first procedure is the conventional process, by which we observe the normal process of paraffin casting using the paraffin wax. In order to perform it or to apply this method, you just only need to follow the procedure that I already told you, or you can watch those helpful videos that I share with you, the link. And for the second method, under the types of procedure, the GSR test kit, it is the gunshot residue test kit. It is only available if you will order it intentionally sa mga forensic laboratory or forensic manufacturer na nagpo-produce nito. So it is advantage in terms of the preparation kasi madali siya, hindi mo na kailangang tunawin yung paraffin wax saka i-perform yung ibang procedure. Because given na yung mga material, kailangan mo lang sundan yung procedure na nakalagay sa box or instructions. So as you can see in this picture, there is a pair of gloves, and also evidence card, the exact procedure, and 4 containers na kailangang ilagay doon yung mga specimen in order for us to protect the credibility of the evidence, and also to preserve the specimen kasi kailangan yung pag-aralan at i-examine. And also, you can see there are buds because you need to perform also swabbing, at saka ilalagay mo yung specimen and swab mo sa maliliit na container. So, in order for the forensic investigator or independent forensic expert to know the result of this forensic method that they apply the GSR test kit, they need to send back this test kit sa original manufacturer para evaluate yung kanilang mga specimen. So for that, it takes a lot of time. So most of the forensic expert, specifically yung PNP crime lab natin, ay ginagamit yung conventional process kasi time efficient and also accessible siya. At saka hindi siya pwedeng ma-influensyahan in terms sa credibility ng evidence given na hindi mo na siya kailangang ipadala sa manufacturer ng forensic test kit. If there is a conventional method, we have a more advanced method that forensic experts use in gunshot residue analysis for the nitrites and nitrates examination and detection. So moving forward, this method is also known as the scanning electron microscope or the scanning electron microscope. So this method is only available and more advanced method than the previous method, which is the paraffin test that confirms the sample if it is positive for gunshot residue particle. So this advanced method is commonly observed and used in first world countries. So this SEM is a type of electron microscope that produces image from the sample by scanning the surface by the beam of electron. You can also watch this video that can provide you more knowledge and also idea of how this scanning electron microscope works. So this scanning electron microscope will provide the forensic expert and specialist with specific findings about the sample and the specimen that was taken from the crime scene and also from the suspected person who fired the gun. Pasensya na kung hindi ko pinay yung video o naglagay ng clip ng video ito kasi merong kahabaan. So you may visit this link, copy it, and also paste it to YouTube in order for you to watch and know the full process of how this scanning electron microscope works. Hindi nyo na itatanong, bakit nga ba naging advanced ang method na ito? So consider that this method is the most advanced and useful way to test for the gunshot residue. It is because it can detect any type of elements, ions, and particles. So just imagine if you're just only using this paraffin test, which is the conventional one, and the old method in examining the gunshot residue, it only gives you the reaction and also findings ng blue flickers sa tatlong primary metallic element, which is lead, ammonium, and barium. Meanwhile, if we will use this method, which is equipped for more specialized tools and features, well, it can examine every pieces of the particle, compounds, and ion, which is can classify into different category and will give specific explanation of why this element present in the crime scene and also in the specimen itself. At dahil mas advanced ang method na ito, mga mayayamang bansa lang ang nakaka-afford ng ganitong equipment. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na ang Pilipinas o ang Philippine Crime Lab ay walang ganitong klase ng equipment. Well, sa ating pagpapalagay, meron din naman, pero hindi ganun kadami o hindi provided sa lahat ng regions o crime lab na meron sa Pilipinas. Kasi this method also equipped with another instrument, which is X-ray, that analyzes the particle that was examined using the beam of electron. And the fact that Philippine National Police under sa crime lab natin ay nagkukulang talaga ng mga forensic expert na trained at specialized sa field na ito. It requires specific knowledge and also specialized courses and application of your knowledge, because given na specialist ka, so kailangan mong alamin lahat ng essential application, theories, at saka yung procedure niya kung paano siya i-apply sa forensic investigation, at also to evaluate findings to come up with a conclusion then that can provide a credible result para naman sa resulta ng investigasyon. So, ganun ang disadvantage sa part ng scanning electron microscope. It is because na may kamahalan nga siya, kaya yun yung isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit yung Philippine National Police ay mas preferred na gamitin yung paraffin test. So, how this method works? So, sa procedure ng scanning electron microscope, yung specimen na nakuha sa crime scene o sa person na suspected na nagpaputok ng baril, yung electron mismo ng electron microscope, yung specific beam niya na mayroong iba't ibang level ng magnification, ay yun yung gagamitin nila para i-zoom in at pag-aralan yung specimen na kanilang nakuha sa crime scene. So, kagaya ng pagkain na mayroong expiration at papanis, ganun rin ang method na ito. It is because it is only applicable within 12 hours upon the shooting was made. So, yung specimen na nakuha sa crime scene ay dapat properly sealed and documented in order for them to secure the credibility of the evidence and to arrive a much more competent result sa kanilang investigation. So, ganun yun. So, pag nakuha na ng mga SOC operatives yung specimen o yung mga fragments na nandoon, ay dinideliver nila kaagad sa crime lab in order for them to examine it, because time really matters sa proseso ng investigation and also application ng method na ito. Hindi lamang sa paraffin test but also sa scanning electron microscope. Third method will be the Marshall inquiry test. So this method is used in detecting the propellants, particles, for the estimation of the firing range. So ginagamit siya sa firing cases kung gaano kalayo o kalapit yung projectile sa barrel. So this method applies sa process ng pagpaputok ng barrel sa object o sa target mismo. So we have here, as you can see, the first picture, which is a reagent, and the second picture, which is also a compound that they apply at magkaroon ng chemical reaction sa pag-examine ng mga specimen na kanilang nakuha. First picture is a sulfonilic acid, meanwhile the other one is a ethylenediamine dihydrochloride. So both of this compound act as a reagent that when added o idinagdag sa mga iba pang chemical ay nagkakaroon ng chemical reaction na ginagamit ng mga forensic expert in order for them to examine yung nitrate na pagbabasihan nila later on kung yung specimen ba na nakuha ay indeed mayroong gunshot residue o wala. Sa procedure ng method na ito, the synthesized photographic paper is soaked in 0.5% of sulfonilic acid for 10 minutes. So yung sulfonilic acid kanina ay reagent siya, powdered, na ginagamit ng mga forensic expert, ay ina-apply for the period of 10 minutes sa specimen na kanilang nakuha. Then after drying the sample, then it was dipped to the solution, which is the naphthyl ethylenediamine dihydrochloride in methanol for 2 minutes. So pagkatapos nilang i-apply yung first reagent, then they will apply the second reagent in order for them to have the chemical reaction at kanilang ma-examine kung ito nga ba ay positive o hindi sa loob lamang ng 2 minutes. So pagkatapos ng process na iyon ay uulitin nila yung procedure, drying it, and also wetted it with a sample of 20% of acetic acid or vinegar, pwede na rin yun, o iba pang reagent na maaari nilang magamit in order for them to have a chemical reaction sa specimen na nakuha. So then after this process, the photographic paper is also used. So this photographic paper is not the ordinary kind of paper. It is a desensitized photographic paper, specialized only for the specific use ng procedure na ito. So this procedure applies not sa skin, but this method applies sa mga tangible object na nakuha kasi yung pinagbabasihan ng kanilang findings at yung focus nito ay yung range of firing or yung range ng pagpaputok ng baril sa target. So it might be a piece of cloth, fragments, or also other tangible object that they can use. The next method of the examination of gunshot residue is the modified risk test, which is somehow similar sa naunang proseso, which is the Marshall and Tiwari test. So sa Marshall and Tiwari test, the main indicator there that forensic expert can use if it is positive sa gunshot residue, if the reagent that was applied sa specimen ay nagkaroon ng purple color. So yung purple color na yon ay yun yung basihan na yung specimen ay positive sa nitrate or nitrites. So sa method ng modified risk test, which is another method, so this modified risk test detects the presence of nitrates and also the residue near the suspected bullet holes. So this bullet holes is visible and also can be seen sa mga surfaces, sa wood, saka sa mga other object and targets. So yung primary focus nila dito ay ma-examine yung positivity ng specimen sa nitrite residue, which is a common byproduct of the combustion of the smokeless gunpowder. So yung smokeless gunpowder is only a term for a gunpowder na not literally smokeless siya, pero yung kanyang usok ay hindi ganun kaitim kagaya ng black powder. So same as well, they apply a specific reagent na ginagamit nila sa pag-examine ng specimen na kanilang nakuha sa crime scene. So yung specimen na kanilang nakuha ay iniestrehan ng reagent na iyon at nagre-react yung chemical sa kanilang specimen, at saka yung chemical na yun ay yun yung magiging batayan ng kanilang findings. So as you can see sa picture na ito ay merong ditong reagent at saka yung forensic expert performing the procedure of putting or spraying the reagent sa specimen, and it reacts sa chemical na nag-apply doon sa bullet hole ng specimen na kanilang nakuha. Nakikita nyo na naging kulay-pula siya, unlike sa Marshall and Tiwari, purple yung kinalabasan ng reagent na kanilang ginamit. Sa procedure na ito ay naging kulay-pula. So each method have a different chemical reaction, different procedure, but same goal of evaluating if it is positive sa gunshot residue o hindi. As a sort of supplemental information, you may watch the gist video. You can copy the link and also explore more about this process. So in this video, as I watch this one, it is only a chemical reaction sa testing tube. They try to mix and also experiment sa chemical reaction ng mga reagent na kanilang ginagamit sa process ng method na ito. It is because hindi ako makakuha ng specific video na applicable yung specimen kasi lacking of data na na-upload ng mga students or researchers sa internet. Same as well sa mga articles na pilit kong hinahanap ay wala akong mahanap na specific data about doon. So yung nilagay ko dito ng definition is as per book definition and also based on my own understanding. Next in line sa mga method na ginagamit ng ating forensic expert ay yung tinatawag na lunge reagent test. So originally ito ay katulad ng dermal nitrate test. So in short, paraffin test. Hindi ba lang yung pangalan pero yung application niya at concept ay ganun ka din. So as you can see in this picture that there is a process that our forensic expert use. So this video, if you can visit, copy the link and watch it on YouTube, will provide you additional knowledge. But this video is only a sort of supplemental information. It doesn't provide any specific procedure of how this method is supposed to be conducted at i-apply sa GSR or Gunshot Residue Analysis examination. So, sa internet, you can browse some of the articles that can help you, but sad to say, there's no specific application ng procedure na ito because again, it is only modified version or mas pinagandang version ng paraffin test. Pero yung application niya ay ganun pa din kasi yung reagent na ina-apply sa paraffin test ay nagre-react at nagiging kulay blue if it is positive sa nitrate na kanilang basis ng GSR examination sa tatlong primary elements which is the lead, ammonium, at barium. May mga katanungan kayo, maaari nyo akong tanungin ukol sa aking discussion. So, if you may wanna ask, Sir, ano nga ba yung method na kadalasang ginagamit ng PNP, specifically ng PNP Crime Lab? So, what method does the PNP Crime Lab use? The method that PNP Crime Lab commonly use ay yung paraffin test. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na almost all the time ay ginagamit nila yung method na ito. So, there are some crime lab na ginagamit yung combination ng paraffin test at saka ng scanning electron microscope. But again, it is specific only sa mga crime lab na mayroong ganitong equipment. Kasi as I discussed earlier, may kamahalan yung equipment na ito at hindi lahat ng region or PNP crime lab sa buong bansa ay mayroong ganitong equipment. So, sad to say, mas preferred pa rin nila gamitin yung paraffin test kasi much more convenient, accessible at saka hindi ganon ka-required yung amount of information at saka knowledge na kailangan mong i-apply, unlike sa scanning electron microscope na dapat well-trained ka at specialized ka sa application nito. At sad to say nga, yun nga, nagkukulang tayo sa forensic expert sa patag ng investigasyon at saka sa more specialized application ng more advanced knowledge na ina-adapt natin sa first world countries. Kung ganun pala sir, ano yung purpose ng paraffin test? My dear friend and my fellow students, yung purpose ng paraffin test ay tinitest yung person o yung specimen na nakuha sa crime scene if it is positive sa gunshot residue. So as we discussed earlier, the process nito ay yung paraffin wax ay tinutunaw muna at ina-apply sa specimen o sa kamay ng suspected person. So it will later on form a paraffin cast using the procedure of paraffin casting. So yung casted na kamay o specimen ng suspected person, yun yung gagamitin ng ating mga forensic expert para i-examine kung positive nga ba yung personang iyon sa gunshot residue o hindi. Gamit ang reagent na kanilang ina-apply that provides a chemical reaction sa mga residue na nandoon sa paraffin cast. Ano naman yung principles behind sa paraffin test? So, yung principle behind dito ay in our field of forensic science, sa mga forensic specialist at expert natin na malaman kung yung person ay positive sa gunshot residue. So the main key nila dito ay yung reagent na kanilang ginagamit na nagbibigay ng chemical reaction sa specimen, sa paraffin cast. So the main key that they use here is the diphenylamine reagent. So in that way, they can use it. So it will gives them the blue flicker color if the paraffin cast from the casted hand of the suspected person is tested later on. So kapag tumigas na siya at lumamig na, pwede nang alisin yung kamay sa cast at saka yun yung kanilang ina-applyan ng reagent. Yun pala yun. I hope I answer some of your question that you have in mind. So next naman ay yung production ng gunshot residue. So saan nga ba nagmula ang mga gunshot residue na kinukuha o pinagbabatayan ng pag-aaral ng ating mga forensic expert? Yung GSR o yung gunshot residue is due to the following. First, burning of powder or the propellant powder. Second, the rubbing of bullet with barrel. third is yung explosion of the priming compound. Siyempre, kapag nagpaputok ka ng baril, expect mo na sasabog yung priming. So yung priming mixture na nandun ay yung nagsisilbing ignition sa propellant powder na later on ay nagbibigay ng gunshot residue, yung usok na lumalabas mula sa bullet na tinamaan ng hammer at pumutok. So yun. At saka yung rubbing ng bullet with the barrel later on, kasi kapag yung barrel ay gamit na, may mga residue na yan sa loob. So katulad ng bulkan, di ba? Kapag yung bulkan ay nag-aalboroto o mainit na sa loob, so yung pressure na yon, in order for it to escape, ay maghahanap talaga ng exhaust point o pwedeng paglabasan. Kaya yun, sasabog siya at bago sumabog ay nibubuga munang mga usok. Pero sa principle ng ballistic, kapag tinamaan ng hammer yung bullet, yung priming niya, yung primer niya sa likod, as you pull the trigger, then it will create explosion. Then later on, yung projectile ay magpropel palabas ng muzzle. And the third one will be the explosion of the priming compound. Yun na nga, yung ignition na yun ay factoring ng process ng combustion in order for the bullet to activate and propel. Kung may production ay meron namang sources. So, the sources of gunshot residue. Saan nga ba kinukuha ng ating mga forensic expert at specialist ang kanilang pinag-aaralang gunshot residue? So, the following are: first, hands, arms, shoulder, heads, face, and hair of the suspected person, or at least the person of interest. So, as you can observe, it is focused sa upper body. It's because if you're holding a gun, then yung gunshot niya ay diba, pinaputok mo na, syempre propel yung bullet lalabas sa muzzle. So yung direction ng residue niya o gunshot residue, yung black powder o yung smokeless powder later on ay papunta sa'yo depending on the direction I mean of the air sa certain environment kung saan ka paputok ng baril. Second one will be the clothes, either victim or the suspect's clothes. So yun yung pwedeng gamitin ng ating mga forensic expert upang pagbatayan ng kanilang gunshot residue analysis, and also yung intermediary targets nila kapag pinaputokan mo ng baril yung target mo, tsaka merong pagitan dito, halimbawa salamin yan. So yung salamin na yun na tinamaan ng bullet, syempre mababasag. So may mga fragments nakakalat sa crime scene. So it can also be used as means of sample or specimen na pwedeng pag-aralan ng ating mga forensic specialist sa kanilang gunshot residue examination. And also yung mga present object na nandoon sa crime scene, yung mga debris, yung splatter of the blood, yung cadaver, kung patay yung biktima, yung basag ng mga salamin at other object na pwede nilang pagkunan ng specimen. At yung another sources naman ay yung inside and outside the barrel, kasi kapag nakuha yung barrel doon sa crime scene ay pwede yung i-examine at saka pag-aralan at i-compare yung result na nakuha doon sa mga fragments at saka sa specimen na nakuha sa victim or sa specimen na nandoon sa crime scene. Also, the projectile itself, kapag yung bala ay tumama doon sa biktima, then pwede nilang kunin yon at saka pag-aralan. At yung suspect naman, later on, if nahuli nila pero walang baril, ay pwede nilang pag-aralan rin yung residue na nandoon sa kamay kung walang gloves yung suspect. So later on, if they also recover the gun, then they can use it provided hindi nalinisan yung baril na ginamit sa krimen. Next in line will be the most common elements found in the gunshot residue. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga elemento na maaaring makuha o palaging nakikita ang mga gunshot residue ng ating mga forensic experts? So as you can see, we have here 3 pictures. So these 3 metal or metallic elements or compound are the most common element that our forensic expert observed and also seen sa kanilang mga gunshot residue examination. Una ay ang lead. Dalawa ay yung barium. So, yung tatlo naman ay antimony. So, I stand corrected kung nasabi ko man na kanina na ammonium siya. So, for that one, it is antimony. So, disregard yung ammonium, it is antimony. Again, lead, barium, at antimony. Or you can also say it is lead, antimony, at barium. So, disregard na lang yung nauna, hindi siya ammonium, kundi antimony. Okay? Antimony. Next topic will be the diphenylamine test. The reliability of the diphenylamine test. Okay? So, yung diphenylamine test ay also known as paraffin cast, thermal nitrates test, and also Gonzalez test. It is because si Teodoro Gonzalez yung nag-apply ng practical application from the basic theory or introduction of Dr. Ruiz. So, this test, however, is questioned by the competent authority sa United States. So, however, the Federal Bureau of Investigation questioned the reliability kung gaano nga ba maaasahan yung method ng paraffin test or the diphenylamine test. So, for this method, the effectiveness and distinguishing the origin between the nitrates and nitrites of the gunpowder became a question sa Federal Bureau of Investigation. It is because yung mga organic element gaya ng fertilizer, cosmetic, urine at tobacco, kapag yung inapplyan ng method na ito ay later on magpapositive rin sa tinatawag na diphenylamine test, same as well sa nitrates and nitrite examination na kung saan ay tinetest yung three primary element, metallic element, which is lead, barium, at antimony. So yun yung reliability question in terms sa tinatawag nating paraffin test. So what if isa kang magsasaka at saka nandoon ka sa pinangyarihan ng krimen ay tinulungan mo yung biktima. So yung biktima ngayon ay merong gunshot wound which is due to the close range shot. So ngayon yung kamay mo ay exposed sa fertilizer. Sabihin na natin nagbungkal ka ng lupa, nag-apply ka ng fertilizer sa tanim mo, then later on tinulungan mo yung biktima. So you as a person or have not this intention of being a suspect of the crime, then tested for paraffin test, then it finds out that you is positive of nitrates and nitrites gunshot residue. So it is somehow contradicting sa concept ng competent evidence kasi given na dapat yung nitrate ay nakafocus sa lead, ammonium, antimony at barium, yun lamang yung pagbabatayan ng examination na yun. So how come na yung fertilizer, urine, tobacco ay nag-positive sa tinatawag na nitrates and nitrites examination? So that is the question of reliability ngayon. Question 2, sir. So why is it ito yung case? Why is it the case? So it is because yung scientific expert natin, yung mga forensic expert natin ay bineview ang paraffin test or yung diphenylamine test bilang extremely unreliable. So it is because it can only test or establish the presence or absence of nitrates and nitrites sa hand ng suspected person na nagpaputok ng baril. So the test alone cannot determine whether the source of the nitrates or nitrite came from the discharge firearm. So this is the point where this SIM or the scanning electron microscope enters. Okay, it is because yung basihan lamang ng nitrates and nitrites examination kung mag-positive ka sa tinatawag na reagent test, kung magkaroon ng blue flickers yung specimen. So not only the three primary elements can be tested for the positivity of the nitrates and nitrites, but also other organic element na makikita sa paligid. So it's a question of reliability, kaya much better na i-apply yung tinatawag nating SEM. So what are the factors affecting the reliability of the paraffin test? So the factors that can affect the reliability of this test are as follows. First is the GSR or the gunshot residue that can be transferred to an individual by discharging the firearm. Second is by contact with the other object or another object that has a gunshot residue on it. The third one is the environment where it was fired. So given na yung person, sabihin natin suspect talaga siya ay nagpaputok ng baril, later on ay nakasalamuha mo sa in public or sabihin natin naglalakad siya o tumatakbo at ikaw ngayon ay nakasalubong niya, then nagkasagian kayo ng kamay. So yung gunshot residue na meron siya ay magkakaroon ka rin. So it is the question of reliability affecting the sources of the credibility later on ng gunshot residue. And also, if the contact with another object that has a gunshot residue on it, same also sa victim. Kapag yung victim ay mayroong gunshot residue, kagaya ng example natin kanina, yung farmer ay tumulong lamang sa biktima. And also sa environment, na kung saan pinaputok yung baril, sabihin natin in public, open air. So yung direction ng air at saka yung mga tao nakapaligid sa'yo, that time you commit the crime or that time you are subject to be the victim of the crime, then ay may expose din sa tinatawag nating gunshot residue. So question naman po, does paraffin test is still acceptable in court? So in general, paraffin test has been rendered as inconclusive by the court. So scientific expert concluded as well that it is extremely unreliable. So based sa mga diniscuss natin kanina at saka sa mga factors na nakaka-apekto sa credibility at reliability ng paraffin test, ay hindi na nila ito kinukonsider bilang conclusive evidence, rather only as a means of trace evidence that can collaborate later on sa kanilang investigation or a means of aid sa kanilang examination sa specimen. Paraffin test as a form of evidence. So the phenylalanine or the paraffin test is not conclusive. Okay? It is not conclusive evidence as to the presence of the gunpowder. So it is because the fertilizer, cosmetics, cigarettes, urine, and other nitrogenous compound which has or with nitrates and nitrites will give a positive reaction sa tinatawag nating phenylalanine or paraffin test. So this test has proved extremely unreliable in terms sa usage nito sa ating tinatawag na court presentation of evidence. So it only serves as a trace evidence, as I already told you earlier. So as you can see in the picture, it is a documentary or a report from Radio Bombo. So you can see there that paraffin test is aid of investigation. So aid of investigation lamang siya at hindi siya magiging conclusive na resulta na kung ikaw ay nagpositibo sa paraffin test ay ikaw na agad ang nagpaputok ng baril. In this picture, you can see that the scene of the crime operatives, yung soko natin, ay nagkakandak ng paraffin test. So, we have here two suspected person na nagpuputok ng baril. So, kinakandak nila yung test in order for them to know if those person are subject sa crime o hindi. You can also conclude that yes, it's still in use. And here is the interesting facts. Kahit ganun pa man, ang question sa reliability, kung pagkakatiwalaan nga ba yung paraffin test, still, ginagamit pa rin ang prosesong ito ng ating crime lab sa Pilipinas. Kasi nga, convenient siya at saka madaling i-apply at saka it is also applicable in terms sa efficiency ng time na kailangan nila sa examination ng evidence. So, kahit ganun siya, meron siyang significant purpose and use kasi nga it serves as a trace evidence that collaborates later on sa kanilang investigation. So, okay, last topic for this lesson is the detection of priming mixture residue. So, this one is a main tool used by the forensic ballistic sa investigation nila. So, in terms sa process na ito, ay same as well sa process ng gunshot residue examination o yung nitrates and nitrites examination natin, yun nga lang nakafocus siya sa priming mixture, yung nasa ilalim na part ng ating bullet, ng ating cartridge case o yung live ammunition. So kapag pinaputok na yon, yung residue na nasa backside o sa kamay mismo ng suspected person, ay yun yung pagbabatayan ng kanilang main source of examination in order for them to gather evidence and information para sa kanilang process of investigation. So here right now we have the parts of the bullet. First, you can see there the underline one, which is the primer. Yung dalawang naka-encircle na color red, yun yung primer, yung ignition, yung nag-i-ignite in order for the projectile powder to burn later on, to produce combustion at sumabog. So, and also it composed of the other essential parts that you can see sa bullet. After the primer, you can see there the gunpowder, the wad, and also the case, and also the projectile. So, yung dalawang comparison dito ay yung sa M14 o sa AR-15 na bullet, and also sa slug ng shotgun. So, meron silang primary composition, yung gunpowder, yung primer, yung case nila, yung wad sa shotgun, at saka yung projectile itself sa dalawang bullet natin. If you will see this another picture, sa closer look niya, yung kulay puti dyan, yan yung primer. Yung color silver, yung tinatamaan ng hammer if you pull the trigger. Sa composition naman ng ating primer residue, same as well sa gunshot powder residue, yung projectile powder natin, ay also composed of the primary metallic element or compound. So, first one is yung lead, yung antimony natin, yung kalawa, at saka yung barium naman. So, it is also same as the composition na makikita sa ating projectile powder. So, parts of the body that is more exposed to gunpowder and primer residue. So, ano nga ba yung parte ng ating katawan na mas exposed sa tinatawag natin gunpowder or primer residue? The residue is most likely to be deposited on the thumb, where the back of the firing hand. So, it is only the closest to the proximity area, so which are closest to the proximity of the plumes of the gases escaping from a gun. So, kapag nakaputok ka ngayon ng barrel, yung thumb mo, yung area dito, ay yun yung pinaka-exposed sa gunpowder natin. So, as you can see in this picture, that the thumb and the index finger of the person, if it is right-handed or left-handed man yan, ay yun yung pinaka-vital area na pwede nating pagkunan ng sample o ng swab later on. So, as you can see, yung back smoke niya, as the gun recoiled after the person or the suspect fired it, then yung pusok niya sa likod, yun yung pinaka-priming residue niya. Meanwhile, yung nasa unahan naman, yung gunshot residue. So, it can also use as a means of the specimen later on na pwedeng pagkunan ng ating mga forensic expert. So, not only sa major part na ito, but also sa palad natin, tsaka dito sa taas, sa iba pang parte ng kamay natin at the upper body, can also be a source of a gunshot or priming residue. But all in all, the main focus of the primer residue examination ay sa area lang na ito, kasi vital area nga siya. Okay, so we have here the swab procedure. As I already told you, yung area dito ay yun yung swab ng ating mga forensic expert. So, the swab procedure is the most popular and convenient approach by the field investigator. So, it is used by swabbing both firing hand and the non-firing hand with cotton to remove the residue. So, yung mga field investigator natin na umarrive sa crime scene as part of the first respondent, then ay ginagamit yung swab procedure natin. So, sa GSR test kit natin, yung diniscuss ko kanina, yung 4 na maliliit na container, tsaka sa merong cotton ay doon ina-apply yung swabbing procedure. But also, sa process naman ng ating PNP crime lab ng SOCO natin ay meron din silang separate process na hindi na nila kailangan ipadala sa mga forensic laboratory in order for them to examine the specimen. So, the area here was the crucial part or yung vital part na pinagkunan ng specimen o ng gunshot residue at ng priming residue. So that is the swab procedure works. The swab cotton is moist with 5% of nitric acid and are swabbed separately from the area of the hand if it is the firing hand or the non-firing hand and forwarded to the crime laboratory for the analysis. So as you can see here, sa litrato ito ay may hawak-hawak na chemical reagent yung ating forensic expert at ito yung nitric acid na ina-apply nila sa kanilang cotton buds in order for them to do the swabbing procedure na kailangan sa kanilang examination process. Okay, question 2, sir. So, how long does the swab cotton should be delivered to the crime lab? Okay, so as a matter of policy of the personnel, so the personnel will not accept the swab samples if it is already more than 6 hours. Okay, so if it is already more than 6 hours, hindi natatanggapin ng ating mga forensic expert or ng mga personnel na nag-gather ng specimen yung sample na iyon. It is because hours ay medyo mahirap na para sa kanila examine yung mga compound, elements at particle na present sa sample na iyon. So all in all, every procedure have a limitation and also advantages and disadvantages. So that's it, and thank you so much for your listening, and I hope you learned something. So if there are queries, questions, and clarifications, and I am open for your question, and I stand corrected if ever I shared with you or discussed with you incorrect information, and also for the time that you spent listening sa aking report. So if you have this idea, then don't hesitate to add, and if you have this correction, then I'm willing to be corrected, and also this will also serve as a significant and also essential part in order for us to learn effectively sa topic natin sa residue analysis or sa gunshot residue analysis and examination. So for that, I'm Alfredo T. Bergonio. You can call me Fred, and thank you so much for the time that you spent. So, bye for now.